Hey there, you're tuning into the news segment from the Roll for Crit podcast, which releases a new episode each week wherever you listen to podcasts. This week, we were joined by an esteemed guest, the snack guy and our own producer, Ivan Hahn. So grab a bite to eat, take a seat, and enjoy listening to the news from November 15th, 2021.
Now, I must tell you, there's not a lot of news this week. There was not that much that really happened in the world of board games, but a couple of things that hopefully will be worth us discussing. First off, a fun little announcement that involves the local drugstore slash pharmacy Walgreens. Are they a national chain? Is Walgreens national?
Think so, but I'm also just been surrounded by Walgreens all my life.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume that they are significant enough, partially because of this story and some other stuff, but let's actually talk about why we're talking about them in the first place.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to get a read on whether this was a national chain or not, but yeah, I think they are.
Yeah, they're in all 50 states.
Oh, good. Thanks for checking on that. So this announcement relates Walgreens and Big G Creative, a board game publisher, who says that they have 7 of their games that are going to be featured at Walgreens coming up, including the exclusive launch of a game called Hangry. So that's pretty exciting, as well as No Filter. And some of the other games they have in this lineup include a Bob Ross game and one that I know Ivan is familiar with, the Kraft Heinz Variety Game Pack.
We don't speak of that.
We're all big fans of that selection right there.
Sure.
So I think the real interesting part of this story to me is that Walgreens apparently is getting in on the board game business. For the first time, they're going to have a Walgreens. They're going to have a board game. I think it's going to be like by the register or something. It's not like a full-on section, but they're going to have board games.
Our local Walgreens has had some of these board games for a while.
Some of the ones specifically that are mentioned in this story.
I think I've definitely seen, maybe it's a different Bob Ross game, but they have a Bob Ross game. They've had the throwing burritos game. I forgot what that's. It might just be called that. I don't know.
Yeah, throw burrito.
Yeah,
from Exploding Kittens.
But yeah, our local Walgreens. I don't know if it's by each store, but I'm assuming since they're a national chain, they're all basically the same. They have a pretty decent geek aisle. They have ours has Magic cards, has different trading card games, board games, some classics, some newer games, Legos, like that kind of genre of stuff. So I'm surprised that this is a big announcement.
Interesting. Hey, maybe you have a Walgreens that was like a test Walgreens where they have started.
That could be that too.
Walgreens Zero.
Or it's just something that's been rolling out to stores and now they're officially saying, hey, we're really going for it. Certainly, rolling. Oh, right, because of dice. Yeah. Certainly, it seems like this is the first time that there's been games exclusive to Walgreens. That's been the domain of Target mainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is definitely the first for Walgreens, but it's also not the first time for me that I've heard Walgreens exclusive.
Really?
Yes, actually, Transformers figures have been having that for a while. So when I read this, I was like, I didn't see the company. I was like, oh, I guess Hasbro's just increasing the list. So I was the big surprise to me, like, oh, it's not Hasbro.
Now you are from the wrong coast, Will. And
I'm from the wrong of many things, but go on.
Now, they say that drugstores on the East Coast are different versus West Coast. Is that true? Like ours are more of a store versus the ones like out in California are literally just a drugstore.
I honestly cannot remember any drugstores. Okay. And probably because you're right. Maybe that's why, because as a kid, I'm like, there's nothing interesting here. Meanwhile, I don't go to Walgreens that much, or at least there's not around any, or I usually go to CVS, but I still there's a toy section. There are board games there. I've seen some hilarious, weird 2-player versions of Monopoly and Sorry and stuff.
Right. So it seems to be more West Coast Walgreens walk like this, but East Coast Walgreens kind of walk like this.
I'm not coming back to the show.
All right. Thank you everyone for coming. But they do seem to be more general purpose. And I mean, like we said before, I don't think you'd make an exclusive for any of the things we've talked about here unless you felt like it was going to hit a reasonably sized population.
Well, and not even that, just the age of people that go to Walgreens.
Well,
Like,
if you look at most of these games that they had on there, they're pretty friendly, family friendly, and friendly to families.
hmm.
So, like, I imagine this could be more of the thing. Like, it's not. I mean, yes, like you said, they had magic. I talk about Transformers, so there's definitely the older nerd who has their income. But this is the kind of thing I expect of a mother who's there with their kids and being like, "Oh,
Yeah,
this looks interesting," or a kid to spot
This
out.
didn't they didn't strike me as much as the mom family. These sounded to me like the exploding kittens, like college
yeah,
kids, high school kids, like
Really,
we just want to
I
drink and goof around type of game.
I
That
guess,
that was
but I feel
the
like it could
I
fit
mean
both.
sometimes those games do fit both markets.
and
Yes, it's a very interesting line where those meet up.
that's what kind of what I was getting at too. Because normally, like, I'll go to a Walgreens and it's like it'll be the mom picking up the medication for their kids or the elderly people at these stores. So that's why it's weird that they have such a quote unquote nerdy section of the store.
Hmm. Yeah, but it sounds like generally speaking, nobody finds this too.
I find the exclusive weird because
Yeah,
Walgreens doesn't seem like it's that massive of a store like a Target or a Walmart,
It
especially for tabletop games.
it is odd, but the first of all, like one of the things I want to point out, at least in the article that I'm reading, it said exclusive upon release. So my
right.
guess is that's a few months. It's not like
Well, that's
June.
true for Target
Right.
too. Usually, isn't it? It's
Yes,
how these all go.
Like
Yeah,
we'll give you the exclusive for like a year, 6 months, and then we're going to
yeah.
go nationwide. I don't. It's also just weird to me that a lot of these companies are doing exclusives for stores when a lot more people just order stuff online.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
because even thinking of game shops, I think of like that's why I think of a game shop, like not a smaller store like a Walmart, a Walgreens.
Well, I think that's probably part of it is that the retailers are like, look, we'll pay you money if you make people come to our store.
And
We'll make a deal with you.
it's not like heavier games either.
But who is like, oh man, I gotta get hangry. Let me head out to Walgreens. I need
I'm
this
Right.
actually
hangry.
on my cell phone right now. I'm driving there.
Well, this is good for this time of year too, because like some of these, I'm assuming, are smaller, like stocking stuffer style games, and like maybe this is a test for the holiday season. Like if it does well, maybe more stuff will come into the stores.
That's true. I mean, if you have everyone, especially this year, who are all looking for gifts and they see this on the shelf, I'm like, this looks good.
Stocking stuffers. Yeah. By the way, I like this quote where someone from Walgreens says, as a retailer that cares about mental wellness and family time, this is the perfect place to launch Hangry.
Right.
And
Or the
Hangry, according to the description, is a fast food themed card game where you're trying to steal food from each other. What does this have to do with mental wellness or
well,
family
they
time?
I
want you
think it's
to
more board game stuff, but I also want to say hangry is
Uh,
not a good mental state.
right. Well, also a lot like two of them are based on kind of junk food, so I guess they want you. They're going to put them next to the diet pills.
Yeah. Also, remember not to buy the Bob Ross stuff because, as we learned from the documentary,
Ooh.
that's no bueno.
That documentary was not okay.
in,
It was a
in
good
ter-
documentary, but it really hit you in the feels.
yeah.
It was very interesting because usually it's like, oh, we're gonna find out how terrible Bob Ross was. It turned out like, no, he's okay. It's just everything around him was terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look for these games and maybe more at Walgreens, possibly now at your local
Oh,
Walgreens.
be right back.
And who knows, maybe we'll in a few years, the next Jaws of the Lion will be a Walgreens exclusive. I don't know.
And Walgreens,
Jaws of the House Cat.
and they're the same size as most local game shops.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you want to go with that, I don't know.
yeah. Get a board game and get some paper towels, frozen dinner, and
Gallon of milk, and you're good.
your
Now
your
you
allergy
go to
medication, whatever.
you go to the pick up your medication. They're like, it's gonna be an hour, so you're like, great. I'm gonna just open up Hangry, sit down, and play with the next person who's waiting for medication.
So let's move on to a couple of gaming announcements that I don't know if any of us will have any thoughts on, but we're going to find out. First of all, from Z-Man Games, we've got Ultimate Railroads, which is a collection based on Russian railroads. Now, this is a pretty popular train-themed Euro game from years back. They're throwing that game plus some expansions into one box, along with a new expansion, Asian Railroads. And this entire box set together is going to go for $120 retail. So this is a big old box of all the railroads you could ask for, hence Ultimate. So presumably this also means that they won't be making any more. Otherwise, that title is going to be obsolete. Then we also have a new expansion for Dune from Gale Force 9. This is for the original, the 2019 version of the original Dune game. It's a very complicated thing to talk about which Dune game you want to talk about these days. And I don't know how you're supposed to say these new factions, but it's Choam, 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 and Richese. That one I got nothing for. Richese. I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce them. But
I think it's very obviously it's Choam and Richese.
Okay, your second one I don't think was far off enough. That seems like that might
I'm
actually
sorry.
be how you say it.
I apologize. The second one is pronounced Fred.
All right. So this is two new factions for the Dune game, which I think is the first actually new expansion for it since the original the original version of the game was a thing back in the day. I could be wrong about that, but I think this is the first like new content that's not just a reworking or re-implementation of older factions in
That's
some
what it
way.
looks like, or at least from what I can tell.
So that's cool. Ivan, you want to any interest in Ultimate Railroads? We haven't had the chance to play Dune yet, so I don't know if you're going to be on top of that one.
Ultimate Railroads. So this is a reprint.
Yeah, it's basically a repackaging of an older game. It doesn't sound like there's going to be really too many changes to it. I think they updated some of the they mentioned the colors are different, but I don't think any of the art or like rules are different. So yeah, it's basically like if you hadn't bought it before, now you can get it in one convenient package.
Okay, yeah. Not really. It doesn't seem up my alley.
Yeah. Well, what about the thing that I'm not sure about with this one? As I said, it includes a new expansion, which also apparently has a solo variant. So there's something there for you. I don't see any word about that new expansion being sold separately.
Oh.
So that could be a bummer if you're someone who has these titles already. You got to go in and spend $100 to get the one new expansion you don't have.
Unless maybe they'll do it later on.
It reminded me a lot of when I had, I think it was last week, when I talked a lot about King of Tokyo.
Yeah,
and how
it might have been on the Patreon show, but yeah,
that's why I was like, it was recent, right? But part of me likes it a little better because one, at least to my knowledge, and feel free to correct me, there unlike King of Tokyo, there's at least 6 other railroads remakes add small things.
Yeah, no, I think this is the first time they've done something like this.
And I guess for someone like me who owns none of them, this is very nice. So it is really good to get new people in. And like you said, Jonathan, naming it Ultimate as well, at least as you said, implies that you don't have to think like, great, is there something else I'm missing? Like, nope, this is it.
But I just don't know how big the audience is of people who isn't a fan of this game already, who's saying, I want to spend $120 on a train game with 3 expansions in the box.
Yeah, that's as I'm paging through some of this. That's what I'm trying to figure out is if you don't already own this game, like it doesn't. It's exactly what you said. It doesn't make sense.
It seems like it's for a very specific subset of folks. I'm surprised this isn't a Kickstarter, to be honest. It seems like,
which is maybe why the expansion's part of it, because they know it's not going to be that big of a thing. But I don't know.
That entices people to buy. I don't know. It's also kind of interesting in light of earlier this year, Z-Man kind of talked about how they weren't publishing some of their more Euro titles anymore, and this is a pretty Euro title, so there's something that I guess they still have a, a hand in that world.
It's a big, like, for them to say we're not announcing any more Euro or producing them. This is a big expensive one to be pushing out.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. So it's interesting.
Did the original? So you said the original didn't have the solo mode.
Sounds like that's a new thing. Yeah, I believe
Well,
that's
that
brand new.
honestly might do it for a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that the solo mode's only added now. I feel like, I mean, I could be corrected once again, but I feel solo rules have become much more popular in recent. Like I don't remember like older like Catan and stuff having a solo rules, even if it makes
Right.
sense or not.
It's certainly become more prevalent in the last few
Now,
years.
do you think, like, so they're re-releasing this game with a solo mode and other games like that? Do you think they can do an add-on that just kind of adjusts the rules and sells like a expansion to make a game a solo game?
It sounds like in this instance, it's tied to the Asian Railroads expansion.
Okay.
So I would guess that maybe they'll just sell this separately at some point, depending on what components it needs. Sometimes a lot of games, you can just read like the solo rules online and adapt your game to it.
The
Okay,
the
because I
the
guess you
big thing
wouldn't
too.
need more pieces. You'd probably need
Sometimes it
less.
depends how they implement it, but yeah.
Right.
The big thing too, of course, is be also how much people like. If a lot of fans are really angry about it and talk about it, like, okay, we do need to make a single because we're seeing so many people talk about it, they'll probably buy it. If no one talks about being angry, but they're like, just keep it in the box.
I'm just having trouble picturing who are the angry Russian railroads fans. Like that's the real hotbed of rage filled.
I
Well,
mean, I'm
this
not talking about like pitchforks and torches, but like Board Game
Oh, I
Geek
am.
posts and
Yeah.
things like that.
because this
Yeah.
seems like one of those, like, if you own this game, this is a game that you play on the regular. I feel like this is that has that feeling to it. Like this is your monthly, weekly game that hits the table all the time.
Could be. I don't know. It's had staying power. It's been around. It's been around for a while. Well, the Ultimate Railroads comes out in March of next year.
I'll
At
pick one
least
up.
it's supposed to. And yeah, we have been struggling to get our group together to be able to play any game of Dune of really any kind. We'll take any Dune game we can get. So I don't know how these factions are going to influence things, but it's cool that it's been the reprint did well for them, and that they're continuing also to do new content for the original version, which doesn't have the movie inspired art.
Right. What year did you say this came out? The original?
The original is like from the 70s. But
So
this
okay.
new version came out in 2019 where they did like a reprint of it.
So you can use these factions in the 70s version?
You would probably have to do some tweak. It's not designed for as such.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
that would be really cool if they had a workaround.
You
That's
might be
if
able to,
that's
but I
if
don't
they
know.
owned that game. I'm sure it was like a Parker Brothers or somebody back in the day.
No, I think it was. I don't know who it was, but it was like actually a good game. It was. I don't. It wasn't like one of those mass market
Right.
companies. It might have been Avalon Hill or something. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. All right, but anyway, that one is coming soon as well. They say early 2022.
Was there a price mark?
It's
Did I?
Not. I don't think the Dune board game has one, but I imagine it'll be. I can't imagine it's more than
it's
30
probably the
bucks.
same price as the other expansion,
Right.
which it's not letting me see. But what's weird for me is, I guess in my head, when they released Dune: A Game of Conquest and Diplomacy, the movie version, part of me's like, so is this going to replace
Mm.
Dune the board game?
No, but
But
it
like,
seems that it's not. Yeah.
yeah, like
I
this is say,
I think they specifically made that as a shorter, easier version for people who saw the movie and didn't want to intimidate people with the original game, which is longer and more complicated.
Right.
they know how long these people can sit. It's the length of the movie. That's it.
Which makes sense, and I mean even for and I think it's supposed to be better for a smaller play group. It's almost like I'm sure there's other examples of this that have nothing to do with movies. Just releasing like the light version, so to speak. of a game.
Right. I guess, and I mean, it's maybe like on other things it feels like different because this one's so heavy that to me the lighter version, like, oh, this is the replacement version. Almost like when you see something streamlined, like this is for now on what we're going to be focusing on. And because I was like, oh, it's the movie one, that's what we're all going to know now. But I mean, this expansion, it's obviously saying no, the classic one is still here to stay.
Yeah. Yeah. I always, my impression was always that they both could live in harmony.
And you can get the original one on eBay for $120.
Hey, that's about as much as getting the Ultimate Railroads.
Or if you want the 80s version, which looks like it's made by, Parker Brothers, it's $200.
I was wrong about that, I guess.
You have reached the end of the video, but before you go, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, and maybe try to help us out on Patreon if you can. If you want to hear more from us, we've also got a podcast. This is released weekly, and there'll be links down below for wherever you want to listen to podcasts.